On this episode of the Someday Life podcast, I speak with real estate agent Jennifer McCulloch. Jennifer began her real estate career in 2003 while in her early 20s. In 2010, she began getting involved in leadership, starting with the Idaho Professional Women's Network. This led to serving as the local and state president for the Women's Council of Realtors and finally the president of the Greater Idaho Falls Association of Realtors in 2019. She currently serves as a state director with the Idaho Realtors. Last year, she was instrumental in organizing a conference held in Boise called Owning It, a day-long event designed to inspire, educate, and support women in all aspects of business. During the recession 10 years ago, she was in debt to her eyeballs, barely scraping by and wondering how they would have money for gas and food. In the midst of finally seeing a shred of light at the end of the tunnel, in 2015, she and her husband separated, later divorcing, and once again, Jennifer was starting over. That is when her journey to finding her true self began, as she has since manifested a new, happy, healthy life and successful real estate career. She started a Facebook page in 2019 called the Love Yourself Project. Her goal is simply to remind people to be true to themselves, and by doing so, you impact the world around you. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on Instagram at Someday Life Podcast. If you're into this podcast and you like what we have to offer, you can buy me a virtual coffee. Simply visit buymeacoffee.com/somedaylife. What's up, Jen?
Hi.
Jennifer McCulloch in the house. I'm like super stoked to get together on this podcast with you. I told you about it.
Me too. I'm so excited.
Right? It's like super, super cool. The first one went a little, I don't know, I think some people saw the first one, right? Not many people, but it was like super rough.
Yeah.
Super rough. It was just more of like, you know, when you're really excited about something.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just kind of get out in front of your skis a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh, well, I set that out there in the universe.
Yeah.
Internet has a pretty long memory, so this is kind of going to be here for a while.
No, it's good. I think you just kind of have to sometimes do that. You just don't worry about... We're always worried about being perfect. Sometimes you just got to take the leap, right? And then you go from there. So I thought it was great. I'm so proud of you. I think this is a very exciting thing.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm pretty stoked about it. And it's uncharted waters for sure, just learning how to, like we were just talking a second ago, like what it takes to edit videos and your audio and your sound and all that stuff. Can you hear me pretty good?
I can hear you, yeah. I just feel a little weird because
you got earmuffs on?
Yeah, exactly. And my head's so little.
You can scoot this mic to you a little bit closer if you want. And we'll pick it up. We can edit all this other stuff. But so we were just talking off air a little bit about like businesses like during the pandemic, like when this first started back in March and February, but you know, everybody was kind of like, oh no, what am I going to do? And they're freaking out a little bit.
Right.
We were talking about the business loans and just like some assistance that you could get.
Right.
It brought me back instantly to like how freaky of a moment that was.
Yeah. It was a little crazy.
It was because it was so the fear of the unknown type situation. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my wife's dance studio, we were a little nervous about that, obviously, because you have a lot of students and parents there, right? Yeah.
Just the unknown of like, where is this going to go? Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this really happening? We're just stuck at home and.
From the realtor, from like your realtor mind, what were you thinking instantly? Like, were you forecasting like, oh, damn, people are going to pump the brakes on buying houses and selling houses. And,
you know,
was there some fear there for you? Or were you kind of like, hey, I think the market's just going to hang out? You
know, honestly, it's kind of weird, but I don't feel like I didn't really have an expectation, I guess. I don't feel like I kind of overreacted either and went into panic mode. Yeah. I was just kind of calm and like, you know, I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in my life, it's like we have no control over really anything but like ourselves.
That's true.
I mean, we literally have no control over anything. And so I mean, don't get me wrong, was I had some nervousness and some fears? Absolutely. You know, just that uncertainty, I think. But I never felt like worried about that. I just figured, you know what? You're just, whatever's going to happen, you're going to work through it. You're going to figure it out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have my days where being stuck at home, you know, I'm a social person, and I meet with lots of people. And so I probably spent a few extra hours in bed than I normally would have. I mean, I think there's a little bit of, I mean, I don't want to say as far as like depression, you know, that's a little extreme, but just kind of like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, you know, I think everybody just felt in this twilight zone. So, but as far as the market was concerned, I never felt worried, I guess. It was like, you know what? You've been through worse.
It's true.
I was probably more prepared financially than I've ever been. I knew I was comfortable. I was okay. So, for me, fortunately, like, that was all good. But that's also because I've had my moments where it wasn't. So.
Well, and I thought about the people just, you know, like those people starting out with businesses, those younger entrepreneurs that just started something. Yeah. I'm like, oh, like my heart just felt for them because obviously as an entrepreneur, I've started businesses and some of them take flight and then some of them just like crash hard on the runway. Yeah. And I thought, man, what if you had just started a business? I'm trying to think, what was the business I saw that I thought it was a restaurant. I mean, the restaurant business is insanely tough.
Well, and
imagine if you just started that, right? And you're like, hey, grand opening. And then a month later, it's like, pump the brakes, full quarantine.
Right.
No guests.
I mean, my heart definitely feels for anybody in that industry. It was, I can't even imagine what that was like. And, you know, you try to do your part by ordering out and tipping a little more and that kind of thing. But those guys, you know, it was rough. Crazy. They definitely had a mountain to climb. And so
I think I'm a firm believer in adaptability. I think the quicker you can adapt, the more successful you're going to be in life. Right. Like the whole aspect of life. Right. Not just like what you're doing in your career, but what your relationship is at home. Yeah. You know, like if you're like this strong-willed person that just isn't open-minded and willing to adapt and find ways to make changes. Yeah. That is such a checkbox. That's such a box you need to check in order to be successful. Well, and to be happy, really.
Yeah. I think you've got to learn to be flexible. I mean, the one constant in our life is change, right? Things are always changing, and you have to be willing to kind of flow with just life and how, you know, I'm kind of the big, you know, universe and it's going to guide you and direct you. Yeah. And I think you just have to follow that ebb and flow of life. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I struggle myself sometimes with that continuity and being flexible and open to change. I mean, I think we all do a little bit to some degree. And but the more you are, I think it opens up avenues. I mean, it was really cool. I heard of one of the restaurants that, I mean, you know, they started selling different products and seasonings and sauces and, you know, I mean, just trying to get outside the box of their norm of what they did. And I think the people who were able to find ways to adapt differently and think differently, think outside the box, you know, they thrived. And maybe thrived is a strong word, but they definitely are still in business.
Well, I think if you're still in business, you're thriving to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
That's so cool. I've heard a lot of stories similar to that. Yeah. And I thought, how awesome are we? How awesome are we as people right? that we can just innovate and create a different avenue for ourselves. And this is what makes me believe that everybody has what it takes to accomplish their goals. AKA their someday life. Right. Is if they can if people would just, I think, sit back, and if your life was on a DVR and you were able to go back and replay it, I think you could find things in there where that failure is what led you to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That struggle.
Yeah.
Because think about...
I think if you're willing to be open to the lessons, I think sometimes it's hard because there's also this sense of, there's a couple things that happen. The sense of pride kicks in, right? Mm. And then we just beat ourselves up and we hang on to that lingers. There's a sense of pride about that we have to overcome to actually see the lessons and to learn the lessons. And then there's also the fear of that maybe happening again, or the fear of failure, or, and then that lingers and hangs on. And sometimes we have to, work to overcome the idea of failing again. And
yeah,
so it's tough.
The pride thing does get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to learn to adjust like my ego and my pride, because I'm just going to give you a perspective from like a man's perspective.
Sure.
Is you carry a lot of responsibility with you, and you feel like it's the thing that you have to do as a man in order to provide just for like not just your significant other, but like your whole family, you know, like they look for you for strength and guidance, and it's a lot of weight to carry, and some men are not prepared for that type of stuff. I've had to learn kind of as I go. I think it depends on who you have in your surrounding, what your surrounding 100%. Cast is.
Yeah.
So I'm super envious of those people that have, like, from a young age, they have the mom and dad that are there as a huge supporting cast for them, and to see, it makes me wonder if those people, do they thrive more than people that maybe come from a single mom or a single dad situation?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah,
but
I think
really
it's going to be different for everybody. I mean, because that you have choices in your life, and we know people who came from great families that squandered or made really poor choices throughout their life. And then those people who came from really tough situations, and instead of being a victim of that, they chose a different path. I mean, it kind of helped create who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we can, I'm grateful. Like, I fortunately had a very good childhood, but we still all have choices to make. And if we're going to use our childhood difficulties, if you will, as a reason not to succeed in our life, I mean, that's your personal choice, and it's not going to get you anywhere.
I think you meet people in life that will maybe reveal that to you more and more. Mm-hmm. There's some people I've met where they're just brutally honest people. They almost come off as kind of like asshole-ish.
Yeah.
But so that's like their perspective in life. You were talking about, you brought up like you're kind of centered with the universe and things like that.
My woo-woo world.
No, this is so cool, because this is kind of how you and I met, in the sense of, I was at a point, like we're really two different people. Like the time that I met you, the first time that I met you, I was in the state of mind. I was very suit and tie, very like Fortune 100 company job, very like, towing the line.
Network mode too.
Network mode, like high strung though. I was very high strung.
That didn't come across to me, but.
No, but
internally, I guess.
But internally in my head I was. And so when I met you and we developed our friendship, and I learned how, like, what goes through your head and like how you perceive things. And I felt this sense of, you were a lot less stress. You didn't carry as much stress as I did. Maybe you did, but you didn't show it. Like, you didn't let your body and your mind show it. Where me, I would really carry my stress.
Right.
Well,
you kind of came into my life when I was sort of at the beginning of my journey of just finding myself and,
Well, finding yourself again, right?
Exactly.
Like you kind of had a reset.
Exactly. Yeah.
Situation.
And so that's probably maybe a little bit of it because I was in a mode of very much, meditating every day and just trying to get my mental well-being where it needed to be. And in the beginning, part of that was just survival mode. Like, but at the end, it obviously worked out well for me and I've continued that journey, but that's kind of where we, met. And I think it was perfect at the time because I didn't have a lot of people who I guess I felt like I could turn to that were in that same realm. And it's not that I didn't have great people around me. I did, but not who were kind of on this journey of, I don't know, I guess talking about the universe and woo-woo stuff and just, trying to manifest life. And I feel like at the time you kind of were searching for that and you had some business things. So I just think we kind of aligned.
I think that was a testament of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge believer. I just never voiced it out loud. And you were a lot more comfortable with that. Like I was a critical thinker and I would think about stuff, but I would just internalize it myself. I never really sought it out or anything like that. My surrounding cast wasn't really like that. They always thought maybe I felt like I'd be a little bit weird if I started talking about like how the universe does this. And
you're like,
so the stars kind of aligned when I met you at a networking event, and then it turned into this friendship. And people can say what they want about it, but I really believe those things are meant to be. Like you have certain energies and people in your life for a reason.
I agree 100%. And I feel like people come into your life and sometimes they don't always stay, and that's okay. But there's a reason for that too. Like whether it's just one lesson you needed to learn or something you needed to gain or, whatever it is, I do believe that people come and go for a reason. And if we're open to seeing that and learning from it, great things come from it that, you just, I don't know. It just sometimes looking back, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. When I think of the various people at different points in my life that appeared and what they brought, it's pretty tremendous.
Yeah. And as a realtor, you have this unique relationship with clients, right? And so, you and I have done business transactions together, but speak to me a little bit about like maybe some cool relationships that you've developed over the years or some situations where you're just like, wow, that was not how I anticipated it to go. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, first of all, the beautiful thing about my job is you are dealing with one of the largest, not only financial, but also emotional transactions of most people's lives. And I say it's emotional because whether they are buying their first home and, they've worked really hard to get to that point and it's a huge success for them. Or, it's a painful situation. Maybe it's a divorce. And so now they're going, through that. Maybe their kids have moved out of the home and now they're empty nesters. And so all these memories in that house, right? And it's just, it's a very emotional time for most people. For some, it's all numbers, but at the end of the day, we know there's definitely those memories and emotions, and they're going through a different phase in their life now. Like it's on to a new chapter, whether that's, retirement or we're having children, we're having a family, or, there's just a different phase, going on. And to be a part of that is really incredible. And I think to be able to come in and just sort of be that voice of reason and remove my own emotions, but still have the empathy for whatever it is they're going through. Is really amazing. So, when you talk about unique experiences as far as relationships go, man, a couple definitely come to mind. And, I've got some friends that have gone through they started out as clients and then by crazy happenstances and circumstances of tragedy in their life, it kind of brought us back together because, you know, they didn't know a lot of people or whatever. I mean, without getting into too much detail and giving away, you know, their personal experiences, but just them, you know, maybe turning to me or me turning to them and just building a friendship off of like a tragedy, is pretty incredible. And then to see where that led with our friendships down the road. I mean, I 100% believe these people were, you know, we were just meant to be in each other's lives. We brought a lot to the table. And I think it taught me a lot personally about, again, we have no control over what really takes place in our life. It's like, my head's too little. It's falling off. I need bigger hair.
My head's way too big.
But no, I think, it's taught me that, we literally have no control over what takes place in our life. And so all we can control is ourselves, how we react, you know, what we do, moving forward and who we surround ourselves with. And I don't know, that's kind of, without like getting too personal with some of them.
Well, that's cool. It's a unique ability I think you have. And I think that, that you need to have as a realtor. I mean, as an insurance agent, it's very similar. Because sometimes, I mean, it's an emotional thing, but it's also, I don't have the luxury of providing like a tangible service. Like they don't see it, they don't smell it, they don't hear it.
Yeah, it's really usually behind the scenes.
Yeah, with insurance, it becomes this, you want to have it in case you need it, but you don't want to pay a lot for it.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's a nuisance to pay for. It's like I call it the necessary evil, because you can go your whole life paying for it. I mean, the same thing with medical insurance. You know, the medical insurance stuff is super expensive, and there's times, and you're doing everything you can to prevent yourself from, you know, having to go to the doctor. Like nobody wants to, and so they're very similar because nobody wants to get into a car accident. Right. You know what I mean?
Nobody wants to lose a spouse, but also you see the flip side of the spouse that maybe is left with nothing because
you're talking from the life insurance.
Yeah,
side.
You know, they didn't have that. I mean, or even auto insurance. I mean, if they didn't have the proper coverage, like I'm sure that's hard for you in your industry to see people struggling when you know I could help, you know, prevent that aspect. Yeah, you know, you can't obviously prevent the circumstance.
Yeah, you can't prevent the circumstance, but you're basically, I look at it as like kind of a castle wall for people. Like I'm helping them build, like they have their castle, which is like their assets and things like that, right? And I'm putting up that wall for them and showing them, hey, sometimes like a small wall is okay, right? But the more assets you have, you need to be building that wall higher to protect yourself. And so you don't want to get into a situation where your insurance poor, right? But you also don't want to get into a situation where just the randomest thing happened and then you are poor financially because you got the brake suit off you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that leads into, to me, everything comes down to mindset and perspective. So, you know, for people looking at insurance and those opportunities, it's a matter of changing that perspective of like, oh, I don't want to pay for this. I don't want it. It's stupid, whatever. And looking at like how it may be helping you in the future. You know what I mean? Like just flipping that switch. And sometimes that's really hard to do. I mean, I was guilty of that. I didn't have, you know, life insurance and certain things in place because of a lot of reasons. But when I changed that perspective a little bit, it's funny how things just alter in your life with everything.
So true. And I think it takes people like insurance agents, realtors, doctors, counselors. There's a lot of great industries out there that part of our job is almost to help paint that perspective, you know, so they can see it, because not everybody lives in the risk management world like I do. So my world, I mean, I've been doing insurance for almost 12 years now. And so I live in a very risk management world now. I didn't though, you know, when I was 24, when I started, I wasn't. But yeah, the perspective and the mindset of people, I think it's something that you can learn and you can work on. And this is what's so cool. And this is why I'm putting myself into my passion space right now as, kind of like a life coach and consultant to people. And I want to help them find ways that they could advance their life. So they kind of have their self right now, and then you have that desired self.
Right.
And the someday life and everything that I'm doing now is to fill in those gaps for people. I liken it to like a personal trainer. Like, I'm a fitness guy. I used to do some personal training when I was younger. I did it as a side hustle.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did it as a side hustle because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And so I was going through my training and my certifications, and I was training people at a local gym on the side.
Really?
And
in Boise?
No, here.
Oh, here. Okay.
But I wasn't maybe supposed to be doing that because they have personal trainers at gyms.
Oh, like I gotcha. Like, you weren't hired by the gym.
I was not hired by the gym. I was operating on my entrepreneur mind. So I started a company called Body Image. And
oh, that's funny. You're like, I'll just use your facility here. Don't mind me.
Don't mind me. We're coming here to work out anyways. We're both paying them for a membership.
That's funny.
And maybe their personal trainers or their staff, their sales staff didn't do a good job portraying to them what they offered. And so that was a fun experience. And I knew right then that I wanted to work with people and help them accomplish things.
Yeah. Because
it's one of those things that we all struggle with. But then I feel like if you can get out front and you can lead the fight and almost take the arrows for your clients, I love that aspect of just people and learning. And
well, nobody, I feel like, nobody is successful on their own. I mean,
amen.
You have to have a support system. You have to have mentorships. You learn from people around you. You have your influences in your life that guide you and motivate you. I mean, nobody, as far as I'm concerned, maybe there's a few other that would say that they did
all on their own.
But we might call them narcissists. Yeah. But no, I think nobody makes it. I mean, definitely, everybody has to have it's a group effort, if you will.
Well, you need to realize that, yes. So, because I will say that I'm self-made. My success is more self-made.
Well, absolutely.
But it's not self-made in the sense of so many things happen to you along that way.
Like, people influenced you along the way. And I realized, like, yes, you create the success. Like, you have to do the work, and
I think it's all on you 100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
To get from point A to point B, for sure.
I'm just saying, but you had people supporting you along the way, whether it was family, friends, people who were maybe giving you some guidance as far as, how to start that pipeline in your business. But absolutely, at the end of the day, I mean, we have to do the work.
We all get we get motivated by seeing other people's success, and you see somebody accomplishing their dreams, and living kind of their someday life, and that motivates me. I love seeing somebody who's like geeks out on what they're doing. And I love seeing people that struggle, who have struggled and keep going.
Right.
Because that's more relatable for my life, is just with mental struggles. Yeah. I've struggled with anxiety, depression, and I'm not unique, but I'm in that statistical category of having these mental issues and coming out on the positive end of it.
Yeah.
Well, and still thriving and still being successful, still running, I can run businesses and I can do all these things that I've been able to do.
Yeah.
And those are the people I really want to reach, because it's just such a deep spot in my heart for that type of mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to fall and get into the quicksand, and it's what it feels like. It just slowly takes you down.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to get up out of there, you need somebody to come pull you out.
Yeah.
And those are people that you meet along the way, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're putting your energy out there in a positive manner, and you're not being super cynical. It's easy to be cynical, I think, in the world that we live in.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know, the stuff that we see on social media, the stuff that you see on cable TV, everybody needs an opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're not of the like opinion, then you're ostracized. You're like, okay, you can't be friends. I think you need to spend less time actually on those type of things, on those platforms, on social media. Excuse me. Watching TV, you know, and seeing other people live their lives.
Well, I mean, especially social media, it can definitely paint a picture that you're not seeing all the behind the scenes. And I think as a society too, sometimes when we do see struggles, we don't want to watch that. We don't want to see that. Like, you know, it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. And then it kind of brings us down. And I mean, I think there's like a fine line. There's kind of a balance that you've got to find with that. Sure. But with social media, I mean, you definitely have to be, there's a beautiful thing that it can offer, but you have to be mindful. But I look at you and, you know, obviously I've known you several years now, and seeing you go through and hearing of some of your struggles with anxiety and depression. And we've talked a little bit about that in the past, and just trying to find like what makes you passionate and excited to, you know, get out of bed and to just do something great. And to see like that, I guess your path.
Progression.
Yeah, progression. Thank you. Of coming through that. And I look at like, you know, Casey's got her dance studio now, and, you know, that's such a huge leap of faith for you guys to take. And then to see you doing this podcast now and wanting to inspire and help other people along the way, and show them they're not alone in getting there, but also like, don't put it off. Like, if the longer we put it off, it's just, you know, we have so much power that we don't even recognize within ourselves.
There's somewhere along that journey, it gets lost. And that's Absolutely. What I want. I felt like that's what I'm meant here. That's what I'm in place to do. Because whether it's movies or songs or real life experiences, real life people that you see, I noticed there was a pattern. There was a pattern in people's behaviors that led them to, and I would say the biggest perspective I've had is talking with thousands of people a year for the last 12 years. Yeah. Is because I learned so much from them, but I also hear their stories and their hardships and their successes. And there is millions of people out there that just never reach that desired self. They don't live their someday life. They tell themselves, someday I will do it. Right. And it's from the easiest, I'm talking about on the daily. These patterns are daily. They are I don't feel very good, I'll do it later. Yeah. You know, that's a someday.
Well, there's a million reasons. I mean, obviously, we know a lot of people, it's the fear of failure. For me, I think...
What do you think traps people from, or holds people back from doing, like, I notice a lot of us, if we feel good, we'll do it. Right. But the real challenge, and something that I've been doing over the last few years, and this has awakened me to a whole different world, is doing it when I don't feel like doing it. Yeah. Like my inner, I call it my inner
when
bitch.
You're not motivated? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not motivated?
Yeah. I call it the inner bitch. I think I picked that up from Joe Rogan, or somebody said that. A comedian said it. And I was like, oh, that's so true, because this voice is talking you out of it. Like, no. You just feel lethargic. You don't want to go get sweaty, and you don't want to go lift those weights or go run. Like, that's hard work. And I started realizing that this happens more often than not, this thought process. I feel that our brains are instantly set to like protect mode. Yeah. Like battery save mode. Right? And I think that's something that we've evolved to. I don't think that's how it was back thousands of years ago. I don't think so. I think we've got too comfortable. And that's why I preach to people that you need to be uncomfortable.
Right. But I think, there's definitely a level of complacency. And I think the big thing that is the difference is it's not saying you have to be, high-powered, successful, crazy. I mean,
rah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this also is just about having contentment in your life and in who you are and finding true happiness within yourself, and are you doing that? I mean, for some, maybe it's just their life is very, simple. They do a job that they love and they get to be home every day in the afternoon and they garden and they, I think I want to make sure that it's clear, you don't have to be always trying to rise to the top, but it's just whatever it is that makes you happy in your life, you're fulfilling that, And yeah, complacency, I think sometimes we definitely get that way where it's easy. It's I have a coach, a real estate coach, and, it's he always says, it's just so easy not to do something. It's not that it's hard to do it. It's just so easy not to.
Yeah, that is, oh man, I love that.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I'm saying is I put together these patterns for myself over the years. Mm-hmm. There's times where, like he's saying, it's so easy to not do something. And that's what I was talking about is that this day and age, I feel like that's more accessible for us. Yeah. Just the comfort of everything. And it makes people, you think about the idea of losing your phone, mm-hmm. how panicked you are instantly.
Yeah.
Try remembering phone numbers.
I'm lucky I even know my own.
I know. I only know 2 or 3, but when I was 18, I knew 40.
Yeah. True, yeah.
When I was growing up and in high school, having a home phone in our house, I memorized all these numbers. And that mm-hmm. scares the hell out of me. And that's just one example I can think of mm-hmm. where you get this contentment going.
Yeah.
And and then you think of...
But part of that to me too is also our way of life changes, right? We don't need to remember 40 phone numbers. And so if we can free that space up in our mind mm-hmm. for other things, that's just kind of the way of our world with technology and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I think to me, complacency is more, I go to work, I come home, I sit in front of the TV all night, and it's you're kind of stumbling through life, but you're never really feeling any kind of joy. Mm-hmm. You're just...
I think because you're not, on my the last podcast I had with Sheridan Bird, I was talking about how I found myself into this contentment trap. And it was because I wasn't fighting. I wasn't punching anything that would hit me back. Mm-hmm. I was fighting. I was content. Yeah. Nothing was pushing against me.
You weren't trying to grow, working on yourself, actually moving forward in a growth.
Because everything was comfortable. And that's what I'm saying is society and technology, they lay that out. I mean, that's the red carpet. It's laid out for you. And so it's easy to fall into that mindset and you feel like you're not joyful. But when are the moments that you feel joyful? For me, when I feel joyful, it's because usually something was attempted and succeeded.
Right. It's that personal growth and internal growth, I think.
I see my kids, last night, I'll give you a perfect example. My 9-year-old, he just turned 9, and he had to get a book finished. He left it at school. Well, they didn't have school on Monday. And so he had left it through the weekend thinking that he could just pick it up Monday and start reading it. Well, he needed to have it done on Wednesday. He needed to have it done today. So he had 138 pages to go. And that little dude sat down on the floor.
He just knock it out?
And he banged out 138 pages. And so for me, that was joyful because I saw him here and then he went to here. Yeah. And for him, he was pissed that he had forgot. And it was a mountain for him. Right. Instantly was this mental mountain.
Yeah.
And as he started climbing up that mountain, it started becoming less and less. because I was sitting in the
That's
room because I
awesome.
wanted to hear what his book was about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of sitting in the room, relaxing, just trying to enjoy myself. And he started like becoming very excited about the book.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, this and this and this. Oh, that's so cool. And then he would look at the pages. He'd be like, oh, I got 71 more pages to go. And he just kept going through it.
And it was like he could see this light, like the mountain didn't feel so tall anymore. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what if we as people can do that in our lives and just realize that there's so many more mountains than there is flat ground.
Yeah.
Just the first step leads to the top. And just keep going. I know that's cliche. We hear this a lot, but this is absolutely truth.
Yeah.
You cannot become content because even if you reach, like if you get bored with success, I feel like instantly you can be blindsided by something. And so I think challenging yourself daily, finding little things to challenge yourself. Maybe it's, hey, maybe I'm not going to have any sugar today.
Right.
Maybe I'm going to keep my phone in a separate room for 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Or maybe I'm just going to read 5 or 10 pages of this book. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you struggle with like having a social circle, maybe you reach out to somebody on Facebook that you haven't reached out to in a while.
It's baby steps, right? I mean, it's the little things. And I think when people use the word success, sometimes we think of it as like this grand.
Most people think about success as financial.
I agree. Yeah. And it's really not. It's like an interpersonal, just those little challenges, like you said, just those small baby steps every day, that are successes. And that's going to be different for everybody. I mean,
Success to me, I describe it as living up to your potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not financial at all.
Absolutely.
It's realizing that you have a talent. It's taking not advantage, but it's taking ownership of opportunities. It's basically, what your capabilities are, which I think we are all born into this world with fantastic, like limitless, basically stuff that you can do as a person.
Right.
And I feel like if you don't acknowledge that, then that's failure.
Yeah.
Succeeding is living up to that potential and striving to hit your ceiling.
Yeah.
You could be any person.
Right.
You could be any person. It doesn't have to be, oh, I made, 6 figures this year financially. I'm successful.
Right.
You want to know how I've met so many unhappy people that make 6 figures?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, money has nothing to do with it. I mean, there's a financial aspect that is fine. Like if you want to get to a point of creating more stability, I know for me, that was definitely an area I wanted to work on and to achieve for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me how, you can create these habits, these mental habits that actually hold you back from that. But once you get into a flow of manifesting what you really want in your life, and you're open to actually receiving it, I think that was the number one thing I learned, is being open to actually receiving it. And once you do, it's like crazy to me how it kind of flows effortlessly. I mean, you're still putting in effort and you still have to do work and challenges, but like you're more open to opportunities and things that come your way. And it could be something even on a small scale. So, somebody for whatever reason comes out of the woodworks and offers you, I buy you a dinner gift certificate, or, like little gifts, right? And something that just kind of, here's a car wash. I don't know. I'm like using kind of a small idea, but it grows into bigger things. And we have to look at that like we're receiving abundance from people. And sometimes we're like, no, I don't want that. Why are you giving that to me? Now I feel like I owe you something. And it's like being open to receiving, because maybe that's a gift for that person to give that to you. And the more you do that, the more that comes your way and the more opportunities that open up for you. And I found that for me, like once I could start being open to the little things, the bigger things sort of naturally evolved, and I was able to see those opportunities and not be afraid to take the plunge, if you will. And when I say that, I mean like I've had some people in business that I've partnered with on different things that, they've changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
But if those opportunities hadn't arisen and I was too afraid to take them or to realize that it was, an opportunity, I mean, I wouldn't have grown in my business or as a person. And
I think there's a series of things that you do subconsciously that will open you up to when those opportunities come in, and it allows you to take a hold of them. I think there's a lot of things that happen there, because some people hear opportunities and they instantly get skeptical of the opportunity, or they feel like their self-confidence is so low, they feel like there's no way, like maybe a job opportunity comes about.
Right.
And they're like, oh man, I don't think I can do that. Like, what if I am not successful at it?
Or it requires a move, or...
Yeah, you instantly, like, self-critique.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a healthy way to do it. Especially because the opportunity, I guess, look at it as what you've done prior to the opportunity is why the opportunity is there.
Yeah.
So you need to be thankful for it, and you need to embrace it, and you need to just send it right at that opportunity, because there are things that have manifested in the past, and that's why that opportunity is coming in front of you, and you need to act on it.
Yep.
There's going to be times too where you do operate you operate and take opportunities, and they just don't pan out.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because to me, that is...
Maybe there's a lesson in there.
I think that there's more learned in failure than there is in victory. Mm-hmm. Not every time, but majority of the time.
Yeah.
I can say, like, as a sports coach, coaching basketball and football, I tell this to my kids all the time, that I believe in wins and lessons, not wins and losses. And so we're going to learn more through our failures than we are in our victories. Absolutely. And you need to have that mindset. I think it's important to put that mindset out there in the universe and start looking at stuff from a different lens.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, so much of everything is perspective and mindset. I mean, it really can change everything to just flip that lens and look at something differently.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I look back, and I think I kind of mentioned this to you, like going through the recession, in real estate 10 years ago, and it's like losing kind of everything and losing your footing and just financially going, I have no idea how we're going to get out of this. And at the time, it was so easy to just feel that weight on your shoulders and just want to drown, like you're just drowning. And it's in those moments, I mean, I think you need to feel that, but then it's like you have to just flip the lens and look for new opportunities.
Start adapting.
And adapt differently and just, find creative new ways and scrape and climb and whatever you need to do.
If you want it great enough, you're gonna do some extreme stuff to get to it.
Yep.
And that's what I encourage my listeners to do that are out there thinking about what it is they want to do for a living. If they're stuck in a situation where it's not what they want to be doing, they realize that their potential is so much greater, because that's a common thing. You get put into these boxes, and you need to be able to just break those boxes open and go for what you want. And that's what I want to encourage people to do.
100%. And sometimes that takes risks, right? Like, I think fear holds us back.
It's all a risk, because everything's a risk.
Right.
Like, everything that you do is a risk. Walking is a risk.
Well,
driving, drinking, eating, you could choke on something. Like,
that's true.
But these are all risks. I mean, that's what we live in, is we're constantly doing risk. It's about risk management, and that comes with educating yourself. So if you wanted to be a doctor, that takes education, right? There's a lot of things that you need to do to prepare yourself, but start doing those things. Start preparing yourselves.
Well, and I think when you say that, start preparing yourselves internally too, like trying to figure out like what do you really want? Like, what feels good for you? And I think there's been, one of the things I've learned is there's this stigma about being selfish. Like, well, if I do that, it's not fair to my family, or it's not fair to my spouse, or it's not fair to my parents, and I feel like that needs to go away, because we need to learn to be a little more selfish. I mean, if you do the things that bring you joy, and you're following what your heart desires, to me, that will emulate onto other people around you.
Sure.
You know, because you're going to be a happier, more joyful person. You know, they're going to see your example of following your path. And those aren't always easy decisions. And I think that's, you know, another thing to think about is sometimes we think when we're doing what's best for us or what brings us joy, it's going to be a simple decision. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. I mean, abusive relationships are like a perfect example. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't leave because of feeling selfish or undeserving. And I don't know.
Not
I just
capable.
not capable. And it's like, you know, I just wish sometimes
this
we could remove
break my family up, like, especially if you have children.
Yeah.
You feel like, this is going to break my family up. I don't want to wreck, you know, my kids. But that leads to... Oh, that's so
it's tricky,
destructive, but it's not something you could just tell somebody like, "Hey, pull up your bootstraps and get this shit going."
No,
like,
no,
that's But you kind of have to do that internally.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to find your true inner compass, and I feel like when you follow it, some of the decisions are difficult. You know, for me, like getting divorced, not an easy decision to make by any means. It's difficult. It's painful. But now I can look back, you know, now several years down the road, and I look at my life and where it's at and how it's changed. And I also look at his life and where it's at and how it's changed for the better as well. And you don't always see that at the time. You just see the difficult
So it
decision.
actually makes both of you happier when in the moment you're thinking this is such an unhappy thing.
Right. And I mean, I get that, you know, every scenario is a little different, but it's like, you also have to look at when you're following that compass and just really moving forward with what's going to be best for you in your life. And obviously, I mean, I say that with, I mean, some people are just selfish with, I mean, there's a balance in that.
Yeah, you're saying you're basically saying selfish with your actions.
Yeah.
And
like you are the only
spreading
person who
yourself
is
too
in
thin.
control of your life and how that's going to be. So what things do you need to think about? What steps do you need to take today, you know, to have that and to get there? And if it doesn't align with what your mom or your dad wants for you, you know what? Like, are you going to let them control your life, or are you going to take control of your life?
Right.
And, you know,
you have to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. And it is hard, but I feel like there's a reward that comes with it.
What would you tell, maybe there's some younger realtors out there listening to this. Maybe they're, 2 or 3 years in, and they're presented with this pandemic right out of the gate almost. The market in this area is, strong.
It's tough.
There's a lot of competition, I feel like. And when I say competition, there's a lot of people that inspire to be a realtor as well. What advice would you give somebody that was just starting out? Because you've been a realtor for 17, 18 years, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of like, what would you tell your younger self in a sense?
Well, I mean, I guess there's two pieces to that. I mean, my younger realtor self is just, you've just got to be there for your clients and know that, trust your instincts. Don't feel like you have to let other people control your life. Like, we have those clients who sometimes they call it the Pop-Tart agent, where you'll just jump and you'll just go and you'll just do, and then you go into major burnout mode because you're letting everybody else dictate what you're going to do. And be confident and just learn from those around you. That's the number one thing. First of all, learn from those around you. Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people that are definitely great at it. They've been doing it for a long time. I mean, that is free.
I mean, after 18
free knowledge.
After 18 years of real estate, I mean, every transaction, there's still stuff that comes up where it's like, I have no idea. Like, this is so new. This is different. I've never had this happen before, and you're always trying to navigate through different scenarios. And so leaning on your peers and those around you in the industry to me is huge because, when it's not to say we don't make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. But also when you're working on behalf of your client, we want to try to eliminate as much as, many of those mistakes as possible because right now it's such a competitive market that when you're competing on you've got 10 different offers, sometimes it comes down to just the littlest details why one buyer is going to get that over another. Has nothing to do with the price. It could be a financing thing. It could be, they ask for specific things to be included or excluded or whatever. I mean, sometimes just the littlest things
can make the deal fall apart.
Yeah. And so you've really got to pay attention to those details. And some of this is just going to be experience. I look at myself 10 years ago or 20 years ago and I was like, oh my gosh, I've come a long ways, but some of that is just experience that you have to gain. But I think just realizing to be confident and to have a good sphere of influence around you and people you can lean on and network with and just to know it's going to be okay and to be more in control of your own life. Like now I try to really be like, okay, you want to look at homes? Can you go at this day and time? Like I don't say when works for you.
This is when you're available. Yeah.
And people are respectful if it's like, look, I'm not available because I've got this going on and they're upset. Is this somebody I really want to work with that can't, also be respectful that I'm a human. I have a family. I have a life too. So just trying to find that balance too and knowing that don't come from a place of scarcity where you have to like, oh my gosh, I can't miss out on these people or this transaction or, it's like there's enough business for everybody and don't linger if that one doesn't pan out. Just, you just move on.
Move on
just
to the
move
next
on
one.
to the
Don't
next.
take it personally.
And, I don't know. There's
I feel like
a million
that might be
lessons.
A challenge. Yeah.
We could talk all day about that.
Well, I think there's a lot of challenges out there with, what I would say is like try not to get sour grapes over things because there's a lot of realtors, a lot of people have realtors in their family and acquaintances and things like that. It's got to be a challenge. Sure. I feel like you need to have a true passion for that line of work, and that's one of the big reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I see your passion. This is your passion space. This is like, if I were to ask you, if money wasn't a thing, would you wake up every morning and do this for a living?
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
And I feel like you would be like, hell yeah. Like,
well, absolutely. It's funny because I look back and I wasn't the successful agent. I did okay every year. I made a decent living.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you figured it out hourly, what I was probably making.
Sure.
It was like, oh man, why don't you just go get a job at Walmart? And it's just like, what are you doing? But now, over the course of this journey, I have altered the way I do things and the way I'm structured and my mindset to things. And what's interesting is I now, I could take a year where I put just as much time into what I did, and I did 20 transactions in a year compared to being involved in a leadership role and doing some other things, with that and doing 60 transactions a year. And at the end of the day, I didn't put really any more time. It was the fact that I just did it differently. And I was, I guess, smarter about how I did it and how I used my time.
More selfish, like you were saying.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it's like self-respect. You have to take care of who you are. Otherwise, you can't be all. Number one, you can't be all things to all people.
No, not at all.
And that is in the world that we work in sales and business and things like that. That is a mistake I see made more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That because that actually leads to poor customer service and poor.
And you're not going to work with everybody. Like
no, and that's okay. one thing that I've seen you do over the years, which has been so badass to me, is that you have your real estate business, but you also, I've never met a realtor that helps push other realtors to the top more than you.
Oh, thank you.
I am serious. Like, you could have, I feel like every quality that you have, if you wanted to, you could have the lion's share of the business. Like, you could be that number one realtor where everybody's looking at your numbers and they're like, holy hell, you know? Mm-hmm. But you don't. You choose to help other people basically feast on the harvest as well. Mm-hmm. You do this, and I've seen you in leadership groups, being presidents of the, the National, not the National Association of Realtors, but the WCR?
Yeah, so the Women's Council of Realtors. Yeah. And then the local Idaho Falls Greater Idaho Falls Association of Realtors.
There you go. And so this is why I'm so happy that I met you, because I needed this in my life, because at a time I thought that I needed the lion's share of everything. Uh-huh. And you've taught me how to say, no, you don't. It's okay. Yeah. There's actually more happiness with who you are and what you do. You can actually find a love for what you do and a passion for what you do by actually giving more to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so huge. Before we end the podcast here, though, I wanted to ask you if you would talk a little bit about the conference you helped organize last year called Owning It.
So it's kind of interesting. So last year it's called Owning It, and it was basically designed to inspire and educate any like women-owned businesses. So it wasn't necessarily just real estate. It was anybody who was, whether they were a startup, you know, they'd been in business 10 years or 20 years. It was a way to just bring women throughout the whole state of Idaho together and to learn and inspire each other. So I had this idea for several years, and I just, you know, this kind of goes back to like putting it out there and manifesting, and then being patient, because I also believe timing is everything, and in the right time things will happen. And I know I sat on a committee for the Idaho Realtors, and it was called Community Outreach, and I had zero idea what I was doing. Like literally no clue what to do, how to do it, terrified, insecure, and I had this idea that I'd had for a long time, and I threw it out to this organization. I said, I think we need to do this, but I don't know how or what we do. And, you know, from there, I had a really good friend who was a realtor in the Boise area, Georgia Meacham. And, you know, she was part of the committee, and we had these conversations. And, you know, so it just started out as like brainstorming and collaborating. And I remember her saying to me, this isn't something we can just do. We can't just do this on our own. Like, this is a lot of work. We have to learn to find the right people to partner with. And again, it goes back to what we said, like, you don't do things all by yourself, right? And it was such a learning moment for me, because I kind of wanted the glory, I think, a little bit. Like, no, we could do this.
That pride and that ego thing we talked about.
Yeah, totally. And she was amazing that way. And then what was weird is everything kind of came to a standstill on this committee for various reasons. And it wasn't until the next year that they allowed me to continue serving on this committee as the chair. And all of a sudden, all of these grants were coming available through different organizations, like the National Women's Council of Realtors, for the first time ever, was offering 5 grant programs throughout the whole U.S. to all of their networks to put together like an event or such. So anyway, without getting into too much
together like an educational seminar of some kind.
Yeah. And so without getting into too much detail about that, we went, hey, this looks like a great opportunity. Let's apply. And we got it. I mean, to be one of the 5 out of the nation to get this was huge. So then from there, we went to like our state association and said, look, we got this. This is super cool. We want to do, you know, apply for another one through a different organization. And so we did that, and we got that. And this kind of carried on. And then we partnered with, and now, oh, this is terrible. I am just having like a total blank, but we partnered with a company in Boise, called the WOW program. It's Women it was like a women business program through Boise State. And I apologize if they see this because I'm having a total moment. Apparently not.
They don't have microphones and headphones on.
I'm so sorry. Anyway, and it was a contact that Georgia had and said, I think this is who we need to partner with. They're going to be incredible. And so we did. And so in the course of things between our collaboration and theirs, we were able to bring women across the state of Idaho together at this conference, have it all funded without having to really bring in much sponsorship money, and women attend and just learn all the aspects of business, the parts that are hard, the parts we don't understand or know about, just the inspiration behind it. And it was incredible. So I think, it was a huge lesson to me of just collaboration, patience, and manifesting, honestly, like putting it out there and not giving up on it and not worrying about the how. The how just happens. It just happens. It just comes.
I mean, you want to have things planned out, right? And but the thing, it sounds to me, what made that whole thing thrive and actually grow legs and take off is because there's so much passion behind it. Yeah. Well, and some of it wasn't it wasn't beating a dead horse. It wasn't like, oh, we have to do this. There was a group effort of people that I want to do this. Yeah. And that passion it's amazing. And people need to understand this is if you can get behind something like that. Yeah. And that's what I'm encouraging is because it pushes you through all those mental obstacles. And you just come out on the other side like the fear is less and everything because you desire to do it and you're confident and you're courageous with it. Yeah. So I think that's super epic.
Yeah, that's cool. Apparently I need more coffee. Do you think like if we show Dutch Bros on here, they'll be like, oh, hey.
Oh, yeah. Podcast with 14 views. Yay, we'll sponsor you. Hey, so we're definitely running out. I know you got meetings and stuff today, but share with the audience really quick about the Facebook page that you started that's also helping other people.
Well, it's still young startup, but last year I started a Facebook page called the Love Yourself Project. And again, this sort of surfaced from me trying to find my own way in life and learning to just trust my inspiration and my intuition and to not be so judgmental of myself. And so I started this page to just encourage people in the community to basically let their light shine. Like just by being who they are, you are impacting people around you. So it's still growing. It's still, I don't really, it's pretty new. I think we've got about 400 followers.
Well, how does it work?
It's just a Facebook page. So what I do is I have people who will nominate other people in the community and say, hey, this person has changed my life. And I just think they're inspirational because when I'm around them, they're always positive. Or I love that they, it's not like they're having to do something great. They're just being them.
They're being
and
them.
Somebody wants them to know you've impacted my life. So we show up, my assistant and I show up, we try to surprise them. So we've had, multiple people where we'll show up at their work or, coffee shop or whatever. Yeah. And we have this little plaque that basically says like, thank you for letting your light shine and you're amazing. And we just want you to know you're being seen and to just keep being you.
Keep being you.
Keep being you. And we just give them a little
it's
gift
a thank
or something.
You. It's like acknowledging that. Yeah. Because a lot of times they're probably going through life and they're influencing all these people. And a lot of times people that are so like that, this is what I noticed. It's not like they're looking for the outside appreciation. They're almost shocked. Like, really? Yeah. I'm just like being me. And that's what you're like, that's what you're saying is you're like, yes, thank you for being you. We're encouraged. We're all encouraged by it. We just want to say thank you and give them some notification of that.
Yeah. And I think, and just the power of learning to love yourself, because I know for me, that's been a hard journey that I've gone on, is just coming back to learning to like, just love who I am, like love where I am in my space, love my flaws, like love, just love myself. And that's really hard. And I think, especially like for women, that's really hard. We're very hard on our, we're perfectionists, and we, not just women, but, we, I think, struggle with that. And
I think society and culture put a lot of pressure on you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I think it's just a lot of that. I feel like I'm trying to learn and grow. And if I can help somebody else along the way to do the same and to feel like that permission, you have permission to love yourself.
Give yourself permission to love yourself.
And when you do that, all your choices and decisions will align with that. And I think there's power in that. And then, from there it impacts people around you. And so that's what it is. It's not, a huge thing, but it's just a small thing. We'll see where it goes.
It is a huge thing, I think. So if you're listening to this, go like the page. Love Yourself.
Love Yourself Project.
Love Yourself Project. Go like it. Help Jen and her assistant go out there and maybe nominate some people that or that you've seen in your